Welcome everybody. So it's a brief presentation. We are launching today the full research report. It's available on our website. It will be available via a link at the end of this presentation, I believe, but also via the UK Tech for Growth website on the Department for International Trade website. I just want to give you first a bit of a background as to who we are and where we've come at this from. Findexable is a company that's mapping fintech financial services innovation globally. And what we've been doing is ranking ecosystems to see where the emerging hubs are, to see what the difference is between developing markets, but also to see if there's now a disconnect between financial services innovation hubs and the traditional financial services hubs that we all know about and see on shop windows and office buildings around the world. And it turns out that there is. The link now between the strength of a local banking system versus a strength of a fintech or a fintech ecosystem is broken in a positive way. And when it comes to Africa in particular, as we talk through the findings today, you can start to see that financial services is no longer just about the strength of a local banking marketplace, but it's really about enabling innovation, seeing opportunities and using digital to exploit those opportunities, increasingly also in terms of enabling greater access, driving more customers into the marketplace and improving financial inclusion. So our rankings ranks now over 260 cities across 80 countries globally. The rankings are available on our website also. And today we're going to be talking specifically about two things that we've been working on. One is the research report that launches today for the Department for International Trade, and as a backdrop, which is important to the conversation we want to have later, as a backdrop, we've also been running something called the Africa Fintech Radar, which is an initiative that we do with the Africa Fintech Network, which is really to map across the continent what's happening in terms of financial innovation. And I think when you see the findings from the research, what we're on the cusp of here is what is ultimately we feel strongly is an incredibly exciting, dynamic marketplace when it comes to fintech. As you can see on the chart there, the large majority of fintech firms have been founded in the last 4 years, and the research that we've been doing for the Department for International Trade is really looking to try and understand what it is, what are the ramps that are enabling fintech success in key markets, and what are some of the roadblocks, what are the challenges, the hurdles that fintech founders, fintech managers and leaders are wrestling with and trying to overcome, and therefore what might be removed in order to create some scale African players. So let's now turn to the report. As I say, the rankings are available online, and we do regional rankings, so you can see how different fintech hubs across the Middle East, across Africa compare. And if you want more details on that, you can contact us or contact me directly, and we'll provide an email address at the end. This report was done in the spring this year. An interesting time to be doing a report like this for multiple reasons, not least, of course, because the pandemic, which has affected everybody around the world, and it gave us a real opportunity to take stock of how fintech was evolving in Africa, but also how it's sort of weathering the storm of the last 18 months. And it was of great comfort to us personally, because of the sort of the networks that we built across the region, to sort of see how much success was out there, and really, despite the challenges, how well many of these companies, leaders, fintech founders were doing. We carried out a survey of 200 fintech leaders across 4 markets for this piece of research: Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. And we also did some insight interviews with the list of people obviously on your screen there, one of whom, Ali, is on the session with us this morning. So welcome, Ali, and good to see you. As I say, I'm not going to talk through the findings in great detail because we'd like you obviously to take away a full copy of the findings of the research itself. But really, the report looks at, as I say, a sort of set of ramps, things that are enabling fintech firms to be successful, and a set of roadblocks. And I would say, on the whole, the ramps were quite heartening and quite exciting, and it's quite useful also just to be able to compare, market to market, what's happening. Just to pick out one or two there, for example, it's clear that over the next few years we can see more Kenyan firms looking at international expansion under number 2 on the left. We're likely to see we got a sense that many more Kenyan firms are looking to expand internationally versus other markets. We also got a sense that access to talent in the form of data scientists and data skills was much more pronounced in some markets, particularly in Ghana, than in the others. So it's providing a sort of useful high-level overview. African fintech has done, has survived. In fact, we believe and feel strongly that on the whole, despite the challenges of 2020, it's actually thrived. Our global fintech rankings are showing that there are now, as you can see on the screen there, 13 acknowledged or acknowledgeable fintech ecosystems across the continent, with quite a large number, more than half of those being new hubs, and us including them in our global rankings for the first time. So this is a story of success, and we think the report is actually about a story of how do we enable that success to grow, to scale into a network of ecosystems and a network of successful fintech firms that are not just transacting locally, but also within Africa as a whole, and ideally with other regions. A big output from 2020, of course, as many of those of you who follow the market will know, was that we have seen, despite the challenges of 2020, we've seen some tremendously big fintech deals done across the continent. A couple of those are on the screen there in front of you. And I think the most interesting thing for me about the research was that the fintech as a whole across Africa is maturing. The range, the breadth, the thinking of companies in terms of the opportunities they're trying to tackle or the problems they're trying to solve is much broader than you might have assumed, and it certainly goes way beyond the traditional giving people a bank account style approach or starting payment services. We're now looking at a much wider range of services, and I think that was sort of reflected pretty much across all the countries, all the fintechs from all the countries that we spoke to. Excuse me. Having said that, of course, payments continues to be the primary gateway for fintech innovation. Interestingly, cryptocurrency and insurance were not far behind, but it was clear, from speaking to everybody across the space, that B2B payments in particular is viewed as a primary goal and a clear opportunity. I think the other exciting thing also is that the idea of international expansion is not something that one would necessarily assume with fintech innovation in Africa, but actually many companies are thinking about how they might expand beyond their borders. Of course, it's easier said than done. Regulations, Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is in its infancy, but nevertheless, there are a good number, particularly in Kenya, as I mentioned, that are looking at opportunities outside their home market, possibly even outside their region. We also obviously asked what were views around the sort of venture capital opportunity. Again, one would have assumed that there'd be sort of fairly widespread concern that the VC markets were thin. Actually, it wasn't necessarily the case. Most of them felt pretty comfortable that there was enough access to potential venture funding. Although without fail, acquisition or M&A was the preferred route for the future of most founders, and certainly the majority of those. In terms of the exit route, M&A and acquisition was the primary objective for many of them. Despite that, of course, there are challenges, and it was really talent that comes across throughout the data. Access to talent, unsurprisingly, perhaps the largest challenge for fintechs of all sizes and across all markets. Data science, access to data science in particular was highlighted within the Ghana community that we spoke to. But nevertheless, talent as a whole, was a primary concern for pretty much everybody in some shape or form that we spoke to. And of course, the pandemic is likely to make that challenge yet more urgent, primarily because the opportunity to hire staff remotely is that much now that much greater. Of course, that's a two-way street, but one might assume that markets in the Northern Hemisphere, Europe, North America, are likely to now be looking more widely than they were in terms of their talent pools. And certainly that comes across from the interviews, from the survey, that something needs to be done to improve access to talent when it comes to fintech and fintech innovation. This is a little snapshot, but I've actually, that's the kind of the bulk of the findings from the research. We've done a survey with the Africa Fintech Network also that looks at sort of populations of fintech innovation across the continent, and that's a highlight there. Again, payments and insurance are the sort of primary focuses for many of the community. The research is available online on our website, and also will be available via DIT. I think we'll be sharing a link at the end. Please do take a copy of it. Come back to us with any questions. There are some clear sort of signposts for fintech founders, but also for governments, regulators, in terms of what are these hurdles to scale, but also what are the opportunities for investors and for company founders. And we would welcome your feedback. Thank you very much, Ted.